I want to give you in your notes there some positive reactions to God's apparent prayer shenanigans. That's an original, by the way. Positive reactions to God's apparent prayer shenanigans. Say that once fast. Number one, we need to acknowledge answered prayer. To acknowledge answered prayer. And some of you aren't big journalers, and that's fine, but there are times when you need to acknowledge prayers that were answered, because how many times, for those who have been around the church, have we prayed for traveling mercies? Whenever I see that, we still get a few of those at Impact, of people praying for traveling mercies. I'm like, oh, they've been in the church for a long time. We pray for God to bless this food to our bodies, nourish our bodies, and he does, even pizza, you know? Yesterday was the end of soccer season, or supposed to be. We've still got one more rain date. And both of my kids play soccer. So Max had a makeup game and his regular game. So Taryn and Max both had a game at 9. Taryn's party for her team was from 9 to 10. From 11 to 1 was Taryn's party. At 1:30, Max's game started. And so from 1:30 to 2:30 was his game. And then from 3 to 5 was Max's parties. And all of it was at pizza places. So we ate pizza all day. The worst part of that was we went with another family to John's Incredible Pizza on Friday and ate pizza all day. It's like we saved up and didn't have any breakfast or anything so that we could just chow down, and got there about 1:30, and then I ate some more pizza right before I got to go to a free Kings game, which was awesome. And so it was just pizza, and I thought, well, I won't have to worry about it because tomorrow I'll eat good. No. So I gained like 12 pounds this last 2 days, you know. All the weight I've lost has been packed back on. All that to say, God answered those prayers, although I stopped praying that he would nourish my body with the garbage that I was eating. And it was just, help me not to get sick at that point. Number 2, realize his ways are higher than ours. You've heard me teach on prayer before, most of you, and we pray, God, you're great. And secondly, we pray, your deal is more important than my deal. And then we pray for God's, that we're dependent on God for things, for provision, for our salvation, for things like that. So it's easy to pray, God, you're great. Oh, yeah, God, you're awesome, and I love you, and you're just tremendous, and omnipotent, omniscient, and all the omnis. But then when we get to your deal is more important than my deal, we stall. Because we need to get that settled before we go on and talk about our dependency on him, and then actually get to our prayer requests. Your deal is more important than my deal. When we can finally get to that, I think our whole world will change. Your deal is more important than my deal. Some of you have still not got through that, and I'm not trying to beat you up with that. I'm saying that's a win for you if you can get to that. Most people can get to that in most of their life. But like I've talked to you before, if God wanted to take one of my kids for some reason, which I don't think he ever would, I don't think he works really like that, but if he did, would I say, okay? Would I say, it is well with my soul? I want to say I would. I doubt it. So is his deal more important than my deal? Well, but he wouldn't do that. No, I don't think he would, but if he did. If he told you to sell every single thing you own and give it to the poor, would you do it? Well, he wouldn't do that. I realize that. He's not going to do that today. But if he did, what if he told you just to go do something that sounds like jump off a cliff, but it's not? Just to do the most craziest, wildest thing ever. What if he took your lucrative job that you love and you flourish in and said, you need to quit that and to go into full-time ministry or to go into missions work, and I'll provide for you? And you heard it very clearly in your spirit. Would you go? Well, but you don't understand. What about my retirement? What about my kids? What about it? I understand. Would you go? Would you go? Your deal is more important than my deal. If we can get that with God, man, then you know what? It doesn't really matter. God will take care of it. His ways are higher than ours. We don't understand his ways. Number 3, realize that he truly does have our best interest in mind. This is the whole parent-teenager thing. Teenagers look at their parents and go, you're old and you're clueless and you're out of touch and all you're trying to do is control my life and ruin me. And parents look at that and go, you are clueless and you don't understand what's really about to happen. And the reason I put these barriers, the reason I put these rules together, the reason I'm saying no to this or yes to this or you have to do that or you can't do that is because I have your best interest in mind. Now, I know there are some parents that are poor at parenting, that have made some serious mistakes, that may be abusive. Those are the exceptions. Put the exceptions out. Generally speaking, parents have the best interest of their children in mind. But teenagers don't believe that because they know everything, right? And I think that many of us in our faith are spiritual teenagers. And we go through and all of a sudden we start to grow and we think, you know what, I'm really spiritual. I'm really mature. I know what's up. I'm not getting fed at church. And you start thinking you're all that, and you got to understand that sometimes God will reach down and go, not so much. You're a teenager, and I know in your mind you know everything. My ways are higher than yours, and I have your best interest in mind. Number 4, remember past answered prayer. And that goes hand in hand with acknowledge it. Don't just acknowledge it. Sometimes you can't acknowledge answered prayer because it's not answered prayer. So you have to go back into the books or into your mind and remember all the times that God has answered prayer up to that point. That helps you get through those silent years. And number 5, realize that silence isn't a no. Just because God is silent doesn't mean it's a no. That's hope for the future. And number 6, realize that it's not always about us. That's the one you need to remember about all of it. Because there's still so many of us that really believe we are something. That we are special. And yeah, you're special in God's sight, yada, yada, yada. But this life is not all about you. There are a lot of players and situations on this world stage that we have. And at times, your situation may overlap with someone else's. You got the farmer who's praying for rain because he's going to lose his crops if it doesn't. You've got somebody else that spent an entire year and their life savings on some event that relies on it not raining. And they're side by side. What are you going to do? Is God going to send the rain or not? Because somebody's going to pay. And you say, well, if God's all powerful, he can make it rain over here and not over there. Whatever. Okay, it's just an illustration. You get the picture. There are many things that are happening. And sometimes our lives overlap. You're not going to get your way. And other times it's just like Job. Man, Job, I don't have time to go through even a fraction of the little tiny bit that I know about that, but God squared off with Satan. Satan squared off with God. And they basically bet on Job and what he would do. And God said he'll be faithful. And Satan said he won't. And he was, but look what it cost him. On a bet, essentially. Now don't let me ruin your theology about God and everything, but on a bet, he lost his business, his money, his house, all of his family, all of his kids. All he had was a wife who said, curse God and die, and a few friends that were clueless. And then, after losing all of that and sitting there with he lost his health too, all these boils all over his body. And he's sitting there just whining which is if there's ever somebody understandable of whining about their situation, it would be Job. And all of a sudden, God, who you'd think would come in and be so merciful, thanks for winning, way to go, you represented me well. He comes in and goes, who are you to question me? And then God does his finger wag. Were you there when I created the earth? Were you there when I created the waters? Were you there when I did this? Who do you think you are, Job? Who are you to talk back to me about anything? I'm God. And then Job goes, don't. You're right. My bad. Name of God be praised.